All right, so welcome back to the show. I appreciate you taking your time to tune in. I've got a very special guest in the studio with me today. I'll introduce here in just a second, but I think, folks, you want to tune in to hear this young lady's story. It's a dynamic story. I've known it from the beginning, and she's just become a rock star within our profession. And she's also just a fantastic example of a growing population within chiropractic. And also, she's just a fantastic example of what this show is meant for. The purpose behind this show is to inspire, motivate, and give purpose and direction to chiropractors. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk about from the female perspective, right? So, but before we get into that, I'll go ahead and give a quick introduction. Dr. Lyndsy Johnston from Monticello, Georgia, is joining me in the show. So, Lyndsy, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
That was perfect. You did it perfect. First time on the show, and she nailed it. Before we get into that, I know where we are. We're kind of coming into the fall of 2024 here, and there's some exciting stuff happening coming up at the November summit. So for those of you that are listeners to the show, but you're actually members to Aligned, actually, it doesn't even matter if you're a member of Aligned. This event coming up in November is one that you probably don't want to miss. Lyndsy, I don't even know if you know about it, but Dr. Rob Kessinger with KCUCS, if you guys have never heard him talk, the way he can take complex material like the neurology and put it into layman's common sense, the way you can explain it to a patient. Very, very talented, gifted. I've had a long connection with Dr. Rob and the KCUCS group. It was just this past summer. I was actually up in the mountains of North Carolina riding motorcycles with Dr. Henri Dalliers, also a founder of that group. And there's just been this symbiotic relationship between that conviction, that purpose, that technique, and then what Align does. And over the years, the success rate has been nearly 100%. So we wanted to create an alliance with KCUCS, but more importantly, we wanted to bring material and compile it in a way that you can't really find anywhere else. At least, Dr. Lyndsy, you can tell me if you're aware of it, but on all my years, I don't ever remember where you could have an event where you could go and hear fantastic content, engaging content that clinically improves you on Monday morning. And I'm not talking about upper cervical work. I'm just talking about as any chiropractor, clinically fed, and then on the other side, get fantastic content that moves the needle from a business management standpoint. I don't know if I've ever heard of an event where you could get both at one time. And that's what's coming up in November. So that's not what this show's about today. But folks, you want to put that on your calendar. Look for the links to where you can register for that. But just for any chiropractor, we're going to be in Atlanta. I believe that's around November, the middle of November, 14th, 15th, something like that. But it's a full weekend, and it's going to be a fantastic value. And the point is to make a bigger impact in chiropractors' offices and ultimately in as many patients' lives as we can. So, like I said, we got Dr. Lyndsy in the house today, and we want to, I want to, give a spotlight to her and really let everybody know you, understand you, where you come from, your whole story. But from the female perspective, you've seen this, right? You've seen this for over 10 years. Over and over and over, the ladies of AMC outshine the men. All right, the ladies of Aligned, just head and shoulders above it. I mean, we just had a recent. I'll give a quick shout out before we get into your story, but just recently, Dr. Jacqueline Jimenez She and I ended up, I don't even remember how we ended up on the phone. I think Jeff Reniger reached out to me and said, got a situation. Well, she was up against she was new practice, had only opened less than a year ago. She was already up against the bricks, right? The pressure was already on, wasn't making overhead, was doing not, I don't, let's just say, maybe into the five figures, but was barely scratching anything out of it. Now that was just in the spring. Here we are, coming into the fall of 2024, and she's already with the aligned system. When you have a system, it gives you a predictable result. She's already doubled.
Wow.
Right. And that's, you've been around,
Mm-hmm.
you've seen it time and time and time again. That's not uncommon inside of Aligned. But just give a quick shout out to Dr. Jimenez, proud of her. But she's just one example of hundreds of ladies of AMC and Aligned that you've witnessed, and you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, let's just dive into giving Dr. Lyndsy a chance to kind of share her story. So, Dr. Lyndsy, I've known you since you were a student at Life. Is that I'm dating myself there, right? But it goes all the way back there, your connection, how you got introduced. Tell everybody how you got introduced, how you got into chiropractic, and then your journey, because your journey is different than most chiropractors, right? Most chiropractors come out and at some point they have the struggle. Now, I'm not saying you haven't had struggles, but you've had speed bumps, but you've had that accountability, that mentorship, that development, and you have just soared like a rocket ship over these years. But tell everybody a little bit about Dr. Lyndsy and your background and how you got into chiropractic and your chiropractic story and journey.
Yeah, so I started working for a chiropractor in high school. I was 16, and he, ran an ad in the paper, and he was actually a part of AMC. So I went in, got the job. I was 16, so he sent me home with a permission slip because he said one of the requirements was to get adjusted. And I got home and I said, Mom, I don't know, I just want to work at a desk, I just need some money in high school. And she said, you need a job. And she signed the permission slip and said, take it back. You're going to do whatever he says you need to do. And so from then on, I started getting adjusted. It got rid of my migraines, got rid of my allergy issues, and just fell in love with chiropractic. I saw, the day-to-day lives being changed under his care. And so from then on, I was like, well, I'm going to go to chiropractic school. So graduated, got to Life, met Dr. Christy Osborne the first quarter, quickly became best friends with her. And, her dad is a huge part of AMC, Dr. Todd Osborne. So from then, I actually went through some of the CA classes in high school with Aligned.
I didn't know that. I didn't know any of this part. Now, I'm curious. I know you're going to get to this part of the story, and I'm jumping ahead. But that doctor you worked for, is that where you went back?
Yes.
Okay. You're still in school at this point of the story, but I'm just putting it together in my head. Okay, I didn't know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had got some of the material as a chiropractic assistant. So I knew what Aligned was, and, the material that they offer was quality. So got in with Dr. Christy, went through school. We both joined about a year out from graduation. We knew that we both wanted to get out and open our own. We didn't want to associate. We didn't want to, that was the long-term goal. And so the quicker you can get there, Aligned was going to help us do that. So we started coming to the meetings and graduated, got hooked up with a Right Start coach, Right Start mentor, did the Right Start program. I had plans to go to Savannah, Georgia. Not the best numbers. We were going to go probably 30 minutes or an hour outside of Savannah, and God has a way of putting you where he wants you. And so he closed all those doors, and I moved back home. I moved in with my grandmother and went to get adjusted at the office that I used to assist at. And he said, well, why don't you just buy me out? And he was there. He had a second office. He was there 2 days a week. He served at his other office 3 days a week. So I spoke with my Right Start coach. It actually isn't recommended that you go back to your hometown. they found that, Aligned has, coached me through, you really have to get back in your hometown and be the doctor. And so I did rely heavily on the system to help me do that. These people know me from church and know me from babysitting their kids and, know me just from around town. It's a small town. So, we negotiated the contract and went to the bank. I got approved for the loan, and God just continued to line things up. That's where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where to go from here.
Well, I know a part of that story that I found it interesting was, we were looking at different markets at that time, and that practice, it also takes into account of you and who you are, because the doctor that you're describing, we're not going to name names, right? But that doctor, they had been telling their coach that just no matter what Aligned or the system, you can't beat the attitude. Attitude, action, concepts, procedures will always, when you get those lined up correctly, will always give you positive results. Problem is, the first one that comes out of the gate is the attitude. Mm. And that doctor had determined, would argue with us, right? It just said, oh, this market's horrible. So in one way, I'm hearing this story. He goes, why don't you just buy me out? It's a great idea, right? But what he was saying to his coach was he was convinced that this market was dried up. They've got 12% unemployment and all that. And from my standpoint, when somebody says, well, I got 12% unemployment in my area, I'm like, you mean 88% of the people in your area have a job? That's fantastic. But his attitude was you weren't going to be able to, you couldn't be successful in Monticello, Georgia. So obviously you went in there with a different mindset, worked the system, and set some pretty high expectations.
Yeah, and we have this thing called the man, the land, and the plan. Correct. So it was the same land, it was the same plan, because he had the aligned system, but the man or the woman was the determining factor. It's actually a great market. I'm the only chiropractor there with 12,000 people. And if you look at the statistics and what Aligned recommends that a market has, especially in the Right Start program, it's killer.
Correct. I mean, if you want to give yourself a chance, the bare minimum is about 2,500 people to every chiropractor. But hang out with me, and this is not what the show's for, but I don't really care who's there. I don't really care how many's there. Mm-hmm. I want to know who's there. Mm-hmm. Is there someone there that's owning that market? Has anyone taken ownership of the market? In most cases, that's not the case. So you can, statistically, you can figure out what you said. 12,000 people for no chiropractor is a phenomenal equation, formula. But at the same time, if you would have gone in there nice and complacent, and I just want a nice, easy, you would not have done what you've done. So,
yeah. So I got in, did the 1,000 surveys. My dad helped me with that. He was like, they want you to do what? And he said, if you're going to go knock on people's doors, I'm going to drive you. And so he did. We would wake up Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and get in the car, and he'd sit in the car as I walked up the driveway and did my survey and come back and go to the next one and to the next one. So I think I had 28 or 30 new patients on the books. We transitioned his patients that weren't all fully into a care plan and, into the system and what AMC says, how to run your practice. So we transitioned those over to care plans and re-x-rayed and did what we needed to do on those patients that I got from him. But all the new ones we started up from scratch, from the system. And I remember, I've been with AMC for a long time, so I remember, growing and maxing out that space that we were in. At 5 o'clock, it was standing room only in the waiting room because all the seats were taken, and we're just processing these patients. I had 2 adjusting rooms, and we grew and grew and added a second staff. And my goal, I remember my Right Start coach saying, 20,000's kind of the minimum. You want to get to 20,000 a month, but that's a place where doctors get complacent. So my goal was never 20. My goal was always 30,000. So I remember hitting 30,000, and we had a goal as an office that everybody was going to go on a cruise when we hit 33 months in a row. And I remember hitting that.
Mhm.
So after that, we, just continued to grow and continued to do the process and the procedures. And
About how long into it did you outgrow that space? Because I remember there was a big transition, and you stepped up. Again, you never outgrow your concepts, and you're going to never outgrow your expectations. Um, so you set some pretty big expectations, and your concepts never stopped stretching. I have an old saying, I know you've been around and heard me say this 1,000 times, but you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting, no matter where you are in life and your
Absolutely.
age. So you kept pushing the envelope of expectations, concepts. Where you think that came from, and would be one thing I'd like to know. Secondly, about how long did it take you to, there you are, right starter, stepped into that role, went back to your hometown, had to overcome those components, did all the work. Most of the work in Right Start to do it right is done long before the door opens, right? If you're going to have an explosive opening, that does not happen by just, you're going to hang a shingle and people are going to flock and find you. That's just not the way it works. There's a lot of work that goes into it. But where do you think in your journey that you saw, okay, I'm either here and that's where I'm going to stay, and this is about my max? How long do you think that took?
So I think that it was either a 2 or 3 year lease that I was at, and so it was within 2 or 3 years.
Maxed out.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the next part of the journey. I mean, because we didn't stop there.
So I found a foreclosure within the town. It was right beside the hospital. It used to be a real estate office, and I worked with my mentor, and we opened up. And this is what I love about AMC is no matter what phase of your career that you're in, they can guide you how to get to the next level. So Heartland Chiropractic, the chiropractic did not buy the building. I opened up a separate LLC. That LLC is a real estate company who now Heartland rents from. And so they structure it. They know how to guide you on those different growths. So we bought the building, renovated it. I now have 3 adjusting rooms. We have since then, so then the goal was 60, right? 60,000. We hit it 3 months in a row. My staff is just as motivated as me, which I love. You got to find the right people to help drive the ship. Everybody's got to be in the right seat. Everybody's got to do their job.
Amen.
And show up every day for these patients. So we hit that, and we decided to add additional therapies. We now do some decompression and nutrition through the Well Aligned, and laser therapy as well. And so we needed additional staff for that. And you always go back to your basics on staff meeting, morning meetings, the cheer, the things that you did to get to a certain level are the exact things that are going to take you to the next level.
Amen. I don't know where you learned that from. Everybody thinks it's going to be the shiny new object or there's that little gold nugget, but I'm telling you, the next level is always found in your foundation and your fundamentals. So that's very true. And also a point that you had just made was none of this growth is as exceptional and talented as you are and driven as you are. None of this growth would have taken place without the staff, because you can take a rock star that I'm sitting here in the studio with. You can have a rock star doctor and a mediocre staff, and it's like pulling teeth. You cannot move the needle. But flip it over and take that lukewarm, half-hearted, half into it doctor, but a rock star staff, and you can blow the doors off whether the doctor likes it or not. You follow me? So I totally agree with you that along the way, creating that team, and you do have a team. It's different. There's one thing of having staff and employees, completely different thing of developing a team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, they have to be, because we've been through the hiring, the firing. Again, AMC guided me through how to go from 1 staff to 2 staff to now 5 staff, and continue to feed into them and make sure that they're just as in to this chiropractic thing as I am.
So you've now, I mean, we keep going through your growth, right? This is how long ago now? I'm getting old. I am getting old. I have to admit it. But we're what, 12 years in?
Mhm,
We're
mhm.
around
Joined
12
in
years in. And now,
2013.
I don't want to put your numbers out there for everyone to hear, but you've eclipsed the 7-figure
Mhm,
annually.
mhm,
You put that in your rearview mirror a while back,
mhm.
right? And cash practice, private pay?
We do cash and Medicare, so we're
Cash.
in network with Medicare.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So there we are. And with that journey, there's something else that I want to get. I want to, while we have time, I love hearing the story, and it's, 12 years in the making. You're nowhere close to slowing down, right? You've had the associates
Mhm.
in there, and you're still scaling, and I love the fact that you and I've here in this last year, it seems like you and I've worked together more and more because
Mhm.
your heart is getting bigger and bigger for chiropractic.
Mm.
I mean, folks, I know you're listening, but this young lady, I mean, this is somebody, it's like trying to get a reservation with the Pope. It's, I can't believe she has time to, but I'll send her a text, and within
Mhm.
a short amount of time, I'll say, hey, I've got this young lady that she's struggling with this or that, and she's doing a right start or whatever. She's interested in opening. You think you could talk to her? Absolutely. I mean, Lyndsay's got this giant heart that for outreach to the chiropractic profession, and specifically right start people, because that are going through the journey that you've been through. You've got a big heart for that. And also, while we've got you in the studio, just that factor, when I was your age, the student population in school was about 70-30 men to women. It is now, right now, it's about 60-40 women to men in the chiropractic. So there's a large population. There is a growing population of female chiropractors in the field. And being I'm gonna let you speak to it. I can't speak to what it's like to be a female chiropractor, but I know there's different dynamics. That there's a lot of ladies out there that struggle with the balance of home life, career, kids, and can they still have that successful career? I know that's a big part, a driving force for you. So talk, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your heart for the student outreach, what you're seeing, and the need that's in the profession, and why that's so important to you. And then also talk to the ladies out there that may be listening, because I mean, it happens about every week. There's a female chiropractor out there that's fine. Well, we talked about it at the beginning of the show today, Dr. Jimenez. There she was. And she had all those other factors to balance on top of the fact that she had a new practice and it was not going well. And she didn't know where to turn. Thankfully she found a line,
Mhm.
and I don't even remember how she found it. She could have Googled us for all I know. But talk to the students, tell everybody about your heart for this right start in particular, and your perspective from the female perspective.
Yeah, so I think because of my story with Right Start, that's where my heart comes from. I think that if you can come out of school and open and not have to go through the struggles that I hear other chiropractors go through, that just means the more people you can help, the more success chiropractors can have, the more that we can penetrate the healthcare system. I mean, that's we haven't really moved the needle on how many of the population gets adjusted. I think it's still 6%. So I think that the more successful chiropractors we have from the get-go is going to be the only thing that changes healthcare. And
How does it, how do you react? How do you respond when you see or hear, uh, like, for example, we said it was about 12, 13 years ago coming out of school. Coming out of school in your graduating class, it was that the trend was starting. So back in the day, my days, you know, you came out of school and you wanted to figure out a way to get into solo practice. That is not what the students, and I think the trend was starting about the time you were coming out, but there has been a major shift. And I don't know, I'm not going to get into the politics of why, but there's been a major shift in the students are being told, do not open solo practice, and that you need to get an associate position, which there's some people that might be the right route, but just getting a associate position, I've been around a long time. Chiropractors eat their young. They do not pour into and develop as an associate. You're there to help build the practice and make money, and they don't pour into them and develop the person as an individual. So most associates turn into associate positions turn into a nightmare. And we've got this whole, I'm telling you, the vast majority of people that are coming out of school, they have been told they need to go to an associate position. So speak to that. Number one, was that going on when you were in school? And then secondly, tell everybody, I mean, the truth. The truth is that's for the vast majority of graduates, that's probably not the best path.
I agree. I think that the chiropractic schools know that the business program is not up to par. I mean, you take your colleague's business plan and you change a few things, and that's what you submit to your professor. So I think that they know that it's a joke, and they don't really teach you how to run a business. They don't teach you how to manage staff. They don't teach you the ins and outs of what you need to know. And that's why Dr. Christie and I just knew, with her affiliation, and I knew I'm not going to be able to do this alone. I don't have the tools to know how to get out and open up. So that's where Align comes in. I mean, this is the business, how to run your business.
But it's a better route than going and getting stuck into the associate position because, I mean, you're in the field and you're hearing it. I mean, how many of your graduates right now are even still in the chiropractic field?
So there was about 100 of us that graduated together, and I want to say 10. I mean, it's that own their own.
About
maybe a dozen.
10% own their own clinic, solo practice.
A lot of them are not chiropractors anymore. A lot of them went back to construction or nutrition. One's a yoga instructor that has a table in the back of the room. Like, it's just the potential that they have, but pride gets in the way, and life gets in the way. They just excuses, all the things. But I think if they knew, they did know about Align, and they just chose not to. I mean, it's one of those things where we were so excited to have this plan and do that, and they were like, yeah, we'll see how you do, and let me try it on my own, and then it just spirals.
But then that's a lot of, again, I send a text to you on a Thursday afternoon and say, there's this doctor, I think you would really do well if they got a chance to talk to you. That's why you take your time. It's
Yes.
because over and over and over, we're seeing chiropractors, good people. We need them.
We do.
We need good chiropractors in this field, or chiropractic as we know it is going to disappear within the next generation. That's where we are, folks. So you need to pay attention. You need to be aware of who's down the street. You need to know who the students coming out, and there is a path forward for them. But let's talk about because I want to get that from your perspective. The female chiropractors, there's more females graduating than ever before, and it brings different challenges. And I know from you being one, Dr. Tara Horrell, I hear this from her a lot. Dr. Lisa Bigley. I get a lot of feedback that says there's this large population out there in the chiropractic community that really feel like they're on an island, disenfranchised, and they've got different challenges and they don't know where to turn. Well, so what do you have to say to the ladies out there?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a lot of pressure because I think our mothers and our grandmothers, we're in a different society, a different culture, a different generation now where we aren't staying at home with the kids, right? We do want a career. We do want to be, a income for the household. And so I think that we have to first take the pressure off of us to do all the things at home. I still take joy in cooking dinner at night, but I've automated a lot of those chores. Like my husband knows it's going to be soup and sandwich every Monday. It's Taco Tuesday, some form of taco is going to be Tuesday, so that it takes the pressure off me to not have 90 people that I saw that day and then get home and, dinner's not halfway prepped. Like you have to first off automate some of your home life. And have a great spouse is huge. Them understanding that, you are just as tired as they are. And so, I'm not going to stress myself out to make sure that these things are done. We have, like I said, just automating things in the household has really helped me. And giving myself grace on, now they have great services that deliver your groceries. So if you're at that stage of life where you can afford $10 for somebody else to pick up your groceries, it's a time versus money thing. And if you really don't have the time, then pay the money to have the help, and don't feel guilty about that.
2 points I'll just bring up because I'm constantly this is my world. I'm constantly dealing with it. But all right, so there's Dr. Jimenez, right?
Mhm.
She didn't have the extra money, right? She doesn't have the money
Mhm.
or the time. So, but she didn't have the point I was going to try to bring up is that the hope is found in the system, right? If you're trying to face all of that and you have this sporadic system, you don't have a foundation as a core to your business, you have nothing that makes it more efficient.
Mhm.
Now you've got stresses at the office that's not producing the finances that you need, and then you still have the extenuating circumstances outside. There's another component. There's a lot of single ladies out there, single moms that don't have the supportive spouse. Some of them have a spouse that they're just not supportive,
Mhm.
right? We've got a big myriad of circumstances out there for the ladies, but I think a big point of it is, in fact, I know it is that when you have a system, a true system, I'm not talking scripts and protocols and stuff I'm talking about a dovetailed principles. People and times will change, but principles never do. And I know that has been a part of your just constantly scaling and growing, right? In fact,
Mhm.
earlier in the show, I think you mentioned the fundamentals, the
Mhm.
foundation. I go back to my foundation. By having that secure foundation, all of a sudden it takes some of the stress from the work life. So actually, you can have a successful career without being stressed and still have time for a home life. I can just go down the list like Dr. Nicole Mathy. She's a single mom now, divorced, has 3 kids. She works 3 days a week. She spends 4 days a week with those
Mhm.
kids of hers, and, she's got the system is in place. She does around $50,000 a month, has a $12,000 a month overhead. There's no stress there. She's able to have 4 quality days with with her kids and her family. Because I think a lot of moms or ladies, and I'll let you speak to this, but they feel like they can't have the quality of life. They have to trade Do I have to be I can either have my career or I can have the quality life, but I can't have both. And that's just really not true inside of Aligned. We see it time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're there 4 days a week. I work Monday through Thursday. So, but I think in the beginning, you have to, you know, keep work at work and keep home at home. And when you're at work, you're 100% there. When you're at home, you're 100% there. And so drawing, you know, having the boundaries, making sure that, you know, you put into it, you know, as much as you can on both sides.
hmm And, but that point is if you have a system, and that's what, see, I'm sitting here in the studio, folks, looking at her, and she's like, well, I never experienced that
Yeah.
because I always had the system.
Right.
You started a year out from graduation school. You grew up under Dr. Owen's wing. I mean, you were literally sat at the feet, like literally. I remember a couple times, like y'all were sitting on the floor around Dr. Owen and just taking it in. You've never known what it's like to practice in a inefficient manner. You've been able to one step, and have this very deep, wide foundation. You know, to give an analogy that somebody can listen to and have a picture in their head, you can't build what Dr. Lyndsy has built. That's like building the skyscraper of chiropractic. You can't build a skyscraper on a 6-inch, 1,500 square foot suburban foundation, right? You're going to get to a certain point, and that foundation's not going to be able to take any more weight. You can't put floor 2, floor 3, floor 4. So if you don't have a strong foundation, you're not going to be able to scale up, and it's going to be stressed, right? Even wherever you get to, it's going to be stressful to get to that point because you're on shaky ground. So I just want to make sure that folks, you know, hear this story. It's not a remarkable story. It's a great story. It's an exciting story. I've been a part of it from the beginning. I've at least known about it, but it's not uncommon. What we want to tell everybody, right? So if you're out there listening, you come across this show, you know, listen to it time and time again. Dr. Lynsy's available. She's in Monticello, Georgia. Ladies, if you're out there, you want to connect with somebody and hear, you know, a path forward, you know, a glimmer of hope, letting them know that regardless of where you are in your career, whether you're a student listening, whether you're a single mom, stressed out with a practice, can't figure out how to scale forward, there is a light of hope through a window of doubt, right? That's what I always like to say. We're all walking around in this world, and you should all be like the light of hope through a window of doubt. Most people around us are doubting something. Fear, doubt, anxiety. The vast majority of people that we know are dealing with something. And lady chiropractors, students, there is hope, there is a path forward, and it's built on stability and systems and principles. It's not Tom Owen, right? Nothing special about me. It's just people and times, opinions, strategies, and schemes will change, but the principles never do. So, anything else that you want to say to the crowd today? You're all wrapped up. That's all she said. She's all done, folks. Dr. Lyndsy is a rock star. She is. She's a bright light, but something that she does not like is the microphone. She doesn't like to be in the spotlight. So, Dr. Lyndsy, I appreciate you coming out of doing something uncomfortable for you and coming on the show and
Absolutely.
sharing. It's great to hear that. I actually had all these years, I never knew that you had started as a CA in that office. So that's a new twist to the story for me. But I appreciate you coming on. And folks, we're going to wrap it up again. Let me say again, don't miss out. If you're a Aligned member, if you're not a member, the November summit coming up is something that you don't want to miss with Rob Kessinger. Going to be, where else can you get a weekend where you're going to be able to get your clinical factors, as Dr. Dalliers would say, your technique of chiropractic, not your actual technique, but the clinical side. And then also you just got to get some fantastic information on the management, the strategies, and the building of that side of the practice. And you get those two techniques together, you're going to move the needle a lot of times. And Dr. Lindsy's proof of that, right? So, folks, appreciate it. We'll tune in next time. Thank you.